Greetings, young prospector. In order to advance into the leagues, you need to expand your knowledge. It's time for Combat Patrol Carnage. Hello, we're back with Combat Patrol Carnage, and we're doing our double issue 55 and 56 to catch us up. So we're going to cover all of our lore as well as name our brand new unit of Hernkyn Pioneers. So before we hit the table and do all that, don't forget, of course, do all the usual. Like this video if you're enjoying the content, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and drop me a comment down below. Love hearing back from you guys, and it goes a massive way to helping out the channel as well. Finally then, Combat Patrol Carnage is proudly sponsored by warbay.shop, your one-stop supply for all your hobby needs. They stock everything you need for getting started with your first few models, to your paints, to all your gaming equipment as well. They also stock Combat Patrol magazines, so if you're looking for some extra issues or you're missing out on some, check them out. There's a link in the video description. You might just have the ones you're needing to complete your collection. Right, let's head to the table. We've got quite a bit of reading to do, including a short story and naming a brand new unit. Here we are, guys, back with issues 55 and 56, and now we've got our Hernkyn Pioneers fully painted and ready for playing. These guys are set off to the side while we go through all of our lore articles over these two issues. Plus, we also get to name these guys, and I've got issue 53 with the naming tables, plus a dice and pen off to the side ready for that. So, like I said, let's put these guys off to the side, and then we can dive right on in. So, we'll start at the beginning of issue 55. So, our first page is all about kin society. The Leagues of Votann are an ancient civilization whose complex traditions frequently confound those outsiders who learn anything about them at all. But as far as the kin are concerned, their society is the height of efficiency and good sense. A tried and tested machine that works to ensure their survival in a galaxy at war. Whether fashioned from flesh or iron, the kin work side by side in all they do. The traditionalist mindset of the kin influences not just their technology, but the very structure of their society, which has remained practically unchanged since time immemorial. The kin prize community above all else, and their natural instinct to pull together has seen the society gradually accumulate into a complex system of overlapping and interlocking groups, the most important of which are kindreds, guilds, and leagues. Whether based on a shared genetic heritage, a craft in common, or the veneration of the same Votann, these associations give structure and meaning to the lives of their members. Each kin has their allotted place within the group, and while it may appear rigid to others, to the kin, this is reassuringly straightforward design for a society in an unforgiving galaxy. In all of these groups, certain rights are afforded to each kin to have their voice heard in councils of their leaders. Most citizens of the Imperium could never dream of having such rights, and therein lies one of the biggest differences between kin and human society. All kin, including the mechanical iron kin, are afforded a certain level of respect as members of society, no matter their station. Iron kin. Created by the Votann to labour alongside the kin, these advanced constructs possess incredible cogitational power. Seriously. Kindreds. Kindreds are the most fundamental units in kin society, and the closest thing their clone species has to families, ranging from a few dozen individuals to many thousands. Each kindred is built on a foundation of shared technology, which they refer to as the Four Pillars. The crucible that gave them life, the forge where they craft their gear, the fane where their Grimnir commune with the Votann, and the hearth burning at the heart of their holds. Guilds. For every occupation a kin can hold, there is a guild, an association of those kin who practice the same trade or craft in a given region of kin space. Overseen by calculating guild masters, these organizations hold their members to exacting standards and levy tithes from their profits, but also ensure that their voices are heard at gatherings of the kindred. Some guilds, like those of the Hernkyn Miners, have existed for as long as the kin have roamed the void and hold considerable political power. Leagues. In the ancient days when the kin took to the stars, they formed coalitions around their ancestor cause in order to protect them. In time, these alliances developed into the spacefaring nations known today as leagues. Each league consists of multiple kindreds who share the same heraldry, philosophy, and methods of war, as well as the same ancestor cause that guide them to this day. So there we go, a little bit more background about the kin and their society. Getting quite interesting, these articles. Looking back now, we're looking at the orcs and different orc clans. The Goths may be the biggest and the meanest, but they are far from the only orc clan to terrorize the galaxy. Each clan has its own customs, including its own particular way of waging war, some strange and surprising, but each and every one a deadly threat to contend with on the battlefield. A warband of Goths charged into battle under the gaze of Gork, or Mork. Imperial propaganda paints the orcs as a horde of indistinguishable brutes whose simple minds can barely comprehend any thought more complex than war. As such, the idea that they could have any kind of culture is ridiculous to most Imperial citizens. This is a comforting story, and not all that far from the truth, but the reality is much more complicated. Anyone who has made a study of the orcs, either from the safety of sanctified librarium or up close on 100 battlefields, will sooner or later begin to discern certain traits that mark out one group of orcs from another. Whether it be a shared physical characteristic or a predilection for a particular colour, these features are often signs of an orc's membership to a large but identifiable groups called clans. Rather than bonds of kinship, a concept that would be as alien to the orcs as a peace treaty or good hygiene, these clans are held together by the iron will of their bosses and the shared traits and inclinations of their members, including, most importantly, the way they make war. So now we're going to have a little bit of a breakdown of some of the, most common orc clans. Death Skulls. The Death Skulls have a nasty reputation as a bunch of no-good thieves and sneaky gits. Any Death Skull worth their salt always keeps one beady eye open for unusual gubbins that can be lifted from unsuspecting owners. These unscrupulous scavengers aren't picky and will steal from just about anyone with gear worth having, including other orcs or even their fellow Death Skulls. All this thieving is a dangerous business, which is why orcs in this clan favour the lucky colour blue. Their infamous bands of looters will slap this colour on all their gear in the hope that it will help them to find even more loot, and to avoid the wrath of its previous owners. There we see our combat patrol painted up as Death Skulls. And yeah, you could easily do this with some Macragge blue thrown in over the armour panels. It'll help match things into our upcoming model boss Snickrot, who I believe hails from the Death Skulls. Clad in lucky blue, Death Skull orcs go hunting for some proper good loot. Evil Sons. Orcs of the Evil Sons clan share a need for speed that borders on an addiction. The aptly named speed freaks of their warbands are never truly happy unless they're hurtling forward at the controls of some dangerously unstable contraption. Whether it's in battle or breakneck race for their equally deranged mates, bikes, trikes, trucks, battle wagons, Hachets, whatever it is, an orc of the Evil Sons will pack it with as much horsepower and firepower as they can before riding it gleefully into battle. Most importantly of all of these additions is a liberal coat of red paint, because every orc knows that red ones go faster. A boomdacker snazwagon leads the charge of a frenzied Evil Sons force. Bad Moons. Trade between orcs is based on exchanging teeth, or teeth, as the orcs call them, which makes having fast-growing fangs an economic advantage. This is the blessing shared by the orcs of the Bad Moons clan. whose plentiful teeth make them extraordinarily wealthy. They never miss an opportunity to show off, buying the snazziest war gear and daubing it in yellow, the most ostentatious colour by Orc standards. In battle, the Bad Moons generally prefer to let their Daka do the talking. Lurking in the back lines, they unleash hails of fire with all manner of flashy weaponry, none more extravagant than their teeming batteries of mega cannons, smasher guns, and bubble chuckers. Bristling Bad Moon's gun battery prepares to rain hell on the enemy. So yeah, a lot of yellow, a lot of big guns. That's the Bad Moon way. Snakebites. For the Orcs as a Snakebite clan, even the shootiest shooters and snazziest war machines won't compare to a nice sharp chopper and a faithful squig companion. These surly gits favour the old ways and share a suspicion of anything they consider needlessly fiddly or newfangled. Instead, they favour simple brutality, and Orcs of this clan grow to be particularly tough in order to dish out violence on a very close and personal basis. Some enemies mistake the Snakebite's straightforwardness for stupidity. They soon learn their error when their battle lines are torn apart by rampaging beast snaggers, riding a cavalcade of ravening squig beasts. A horde of Snakebite beast snaggers tear into the Astra Militarum front line. So the Kill Rig, which is a rudimentary carriage pulled by a huge squigosaur. We got Squig Hog Riders here, Snakebite beast snaggers boys in the background there as well. So yeah, pretty cool. Must admit, they're nice, but I'm not the biggest fan of the aesthetic they went for. It's cool, but not my way. More of a traditional orc with a shooter sort of boy. Blood axes. Most orcs prefer their battle plans to be no more complex than running straight forward at the enemy, hollering and firing their shooters. However, the blood axes are possessed of a knack of strategy that surprises their foes almost as often as it baffles the orcs of other clans. Particularly cunning blood axe bosses will observe the tactics of their enemies and copy them in their own orcish way, laying ambushes, attacking weak points, and disrupting supply lines. Some have even been known to adopt elements of imperial military dress. The deadly commando teams are much feared not only for their sheer brutality, but also their surprising sneakiness. So we've got a rather cool Blood Axe force here. A Blood Axe war boss marshals his forces to enact a cunning plan. So yeah, he's kind of dressed up like a commissar, got a hat, got some fancy flashy bits, a nice shooter with rockets and a big chopper. And here we see his banner boy carrying a stolen or, well, duplicated imperial banner of the Execrators? Or the Exorcists, one of the two successors of the Imperial Fists, based off Fafnir Rand's company during the Heresy. Finally then, we got the Freebooters. Not so much a true clan as a ragtag coalition of outcasts, weirdos, and downright nasty gits. The Freebooters sail the void in fleets of scrap metal battleships, looting, raiding, and pillaging as they please. Living on the fringes of Orc society, and often being naturally more self-interested than their clan-bound cousins, makes the Freebooters a mercenary bunch who sell their services to the highest bidders from among the other clans. Though they invariably drive a hard bargain, it is usually worth it to gain the support of their gaudily attired and frighteningly well-armed flashgits, who spend their hard-earned teeth on heavily customised snaz guns. The notorious Captain Badruck orders a mob of flashgits to open fire. And yeah, a load of flashgits here with the biggest, snazziest guns with loads of extra barrels, magazine clips, and even attachments in the form of some chopper blades there. So yeah, really cool. Love these kits. Really want to get some of my own orcs, I think. So that's it for the lore section of this issue. Over now, we have our naming chart. So I'll bring in issue 53 and some paper and pen and dice, and we'll get to naming. So here we go. Let's find out the leader's name. We've got a 6 followed by, oop, get it on camera, there we are, another 6. So Bargren. And the unit is known as a 1, come on, a 5, a 4. Hirelings, that's not too bad. So we've got Bargren's Hirelings. And finally then, a little bit of a background for these guys. A 5, where were you last time? Could have had Bargren's Prospectors. But we got the Hernkyn Pioneers have explored dozens of aliens' environments and are experts in navigating all manner of difficult terrain. Okay, so that is very fitting then to the Hirelings title. So they're well known for different alien forces and are often hired out in order to combat those forces. Finally then, we can tick build, we can tick paint, and we'll be playing with them in our next video, so we'll tick that while we're at it. Finally then, for issue 55, we get to look at their battle record data sheet. So we have the Hernkyn Pioneers with a move of 12, a toughness of 6, a 4+ save, each has 3 wounds, leadership of 7+, and objective control of 2. So everybody has a bolt revolver, which is a pistol, 9-inch range, single attack, hits on a 4+, strength 5, no AP 1 damage. And each has a bolt shotgun, which is an assault weapon, 12-inch range, 2 attacks, and the same stats near enough as a bolt revolver. The champion has the Highlads rotary cannon, which has sustained hits, which has 24-inch range, strength 6 attacks, hits on a 4+, strength 6, -1 and 1 damage. And then finally, we got the Magna Coil autocannon, which each bike is equipped with. Again, 24-inch range, 3 attacks, strength 7, -1 AP and 2 damage, and again hits on a 4+. And finally, everybody carries a plasma knife, so melee weapon, 2 attacks, hits on a 4, strength 4, no AP, and a single point of damage. They have the Scout 9-inch moves. That means that before the first turn begins, they can make a 9-inch move, which is pretty cool, gets them in a nice position. Constantly, Eye of the Ancestors faction have outflanking Mag Riders. So at the end of an opponent's turn, excluding the first, if this unit is within 6 of the battlefield edge and not within engagement range of enemy units, you can remove the unit from the battlefield and place it into reserves. In the reinforcement step of your next movement phase, set the unit wholly within 6 inches of any battlefield edge, excluding your opponents, and more than 9 inches from enemy models. So that's cool, gets to be removed from the battlefield and then come back in from a different position, which is pretty cool. Makes these guys really hard and dangerous to lock down. So they have mounted, they can fly, and Hernkyn Pioneers, and belong to Leagues of Votann faction. Finally, then we've got a reminder here of strike hard and fast. As well as a high movement characteristic and the ability to make a 9-inch scout, Hernkyn Pioneers' mobility is enhanced by the outflanking Mag Riders, which, if with it, they can quickly reposition around the edges of the board to evade threats, grab undefended objectives, and strike at vulnerable targets. But remember to check the ability's range conditions. So yeah, there we go. Looking forward to trying these out in a game. Right, over to issue 56, where we have a short story and some more pages of kin lore. So let's get to it. First up then, Bonds of Honor, Part 14.
So then, my boys, let's get back to our tale with no further ado. If I remember rightly, I'd left off with Sergeant Askerton leaving his squad to talk to those strangers who'd joined the battle against the Orks. He was coming back, wasn't he? That's right. He strode through the smoke, and the brothers were relieved to see him emerge from the thick plume that had obscured their vision. But their relief was short-lived, for no sooner had the sergeant appeared than more figures began to emerge either side of him. For a second, the squad was worried that the sergeant, or perhaps even they themselves, were under attack. But of course, one so experienced as Sergeant Askerton would not have strode blindly forward with enemies walking nonchalantly either side of him. Luckily, the squad had the wisdom to realize this, and they did not open fire and blast the figures to oblivion. Now these were strange people indeed. Take a look at me. I'm bigger than you, am I not? Taller and broader. Do you know why I'm bigger? Well, it has nothing to do with me being older, or my eating better food than you. I'm not merely bigger than you, I am wholly different. I'm not born different, but I have been remade. You too shall be moulded in this image, but for now you remain a little less. Let me show you what I mean. Nikandor turns sideways. There, you've damn near disappeared. That is a trick that the finest scouts of the Astartes could not hope to pull off with such aplomb. What they strive to accomplish with the best technology and with centuries of training, you have achieved through mere malnourishment. I salute you. But of course you shall not be as you are for much longer. You too will end up like me, although perhaps not as handsome. But aside from the Silver Templars, there are many other types of Space Marines. A build like this is distinctly unusual, yet these figures that emerged alongside Sergeant Askerton were almost as broad and as strong-looking as I am, but they were several heads shorter, and their gear was both familiar and unfamiliar. It was not weaponry that the brothers had seen before, but it had form reminiscent of their own. Young Mektras even fancied that he could probably fire one of them just as surely as a bolt rifle that he had wielded for so many years. But he did not get the chance, for while Sergeant Askerton rejoined the group, the strangers hung back. Askerton commanded their attention and told them of another journey that lay ahead. He explained that they would be taking a journey as companions of the ones who had just joined them. Now this may be a little difficult to fathom, for Silver Templars are a force of their own. Any of you what think you're hard enough, come get some, you gits. Although we serve the needs of the Imperium and ultimately the Emperor himself, it is up to us how we do this. We do not answer to anyone except ourselves, but I suppose we do ally with others. It's not all that unusual for us to ally with Space Marines or other chapters, but for us to join forces of outsiders, those of a different species, wearing their own colours and their own loyalties, let's just say that it's irregular. There are those who would say it is heresy, but amongst our ranks, I think it is generally understood that it is permissible to form any alliance that is in service to our goals. Not that it is necessarily wise to place too much trust in aliens, and it is rare practice, even if technically allowed. And so it was that the squad set out, with Sergeant Askerton at its head, but ultimately led by these strangers, though they and the squad stayed separate by 20 paces or so. As they walked, the sergeant explained the situation. The Orks, it seemed, were led by a great war boss. The camp was not all that far away. Although it would hardly amount to a permanent victory, there was a good chance that if he could be defeated, the Orks would remain in significant disarray, fighting amongst themselves until another one of their number rose to take control of the survivors. The strangers, it seemed, would find it advantageous to have the Orks disrupted, and they had offered transport to the sergeant in exchange for taking out the war boss. While the brothers no doubt would have found it useful to have the Orks set against each other, they would find a way off the planet to be an even better outcome. And once they heard that what was happening, they all set their minds to the task ahead. They got to their destination soon enough. The squad's newfound guides, skilled scouts as they were, melted off into the distance. Whether they were to take up tactical position and support the fight, or whether they simply disappeared to look for their own survival, was not entirely clear. Nonetheless, what was absolutely clear was the location of the target. The squad had been led to the war boss's location. Ahead was a vast, sprawling camp laid out in the mud. The Orks were already wise to the presence of the Silver Templars, and the squad could see them pouring out of the camp. There was no room for stealth, nor was there time to take positions. Now, you might be thinking that the squad were about to fight their way through an entire orc camp to find the war boss hidden safely under heavy guard. And were there any other enemy, you would be right. But the orcs are singular beasts, and though the oncoming troops were many, most prominent amongst them, right at the front and screaming the loudest, was their leader, the target of the mission. But the fight ahead would nearly be the squad's undoing. Getting closer to the end of the orc threats, it seems. Moving on, we're learning a bit more about the different kin hosts. The Leagues of Votann are an advanced technological society and a redoubtable military power. The best of their strategy, invention, and leadership are combined in the kin hosts, the armies that defend the kindreds for external military threats and secure the safety of the vital mining and trading operations. A mechanized kin host strikes like a hammer blow. When the Leagues of Votann go to war, they leave nothing to chance. Their kin hosts are equipped with some of the finest weapons, armor, and equipment to the entire galaxy. They employ advanced vehicles and mount offensive and defensive operations, allowing them to strike hard and fast at the cowering enemy. When troops dismount, they are expertly coordinated by master strategists and move decisively toward the foe, capturing positions, putting down enemies in a torrent of bolts and a storm of plasma fire. Few can match the kin for their skirt arms, and when combined with their advanced weapons, communications, and martial strategy, the might of the kin hosts is truly a force to be reckoned with. Votannic Councils. Kin hosts are governed by the Votannic Councils. These are made up of the most noteworthy heroes of the kindred, such as the High Carl, the Lord Grimnir, and the Brokier Forgemaster. These are dour and pragmatic figures whose primary aim is to secure the greatest victory at the least cost. Their wisdom allows them to keep a focus on their goal without letting pride or fury lead them astray. A hastily convened council discuss an invasion. Soldiers of the line. A kin host is usually built around a solid core of infantry, who the kin refer to as soldiers of the line. The most numerous of these are the highly trained and well-equipped Hernkyn warriors. But the kin host also contains combat specialists like the heavily armoured Ironhear and the Conphonian Berserks. Ironhear Hearthguard break through orc defences. Armoured Might. The kin make use of their technological expertise by employing armoured vehicles on a battlefield. These can play multiple roles depending on the situation. In some battles, they may act as mobile firing platforms, raining down death on the enemy from afar. In others, they may transport troops right to the front line and shield them from enemy fire as they dismount to launch an assault on the still reeling foes. The kin's armoured vehicles support a frontal assault. You see a great number of different types of characters. We got the Brokier here in the back. We got a High Carl, Uto the Destin there, and we got our Grimnir as well. Plus some of the Brokier Thunderkin, which we'll be getting in our premium kit. Next up then, our last page, the Leagues. To ward themselves against the vicious perils of the wider galaxy, kindreds band together in alliances called Leagues. The Leagues pool their resources, relationships, and military might to prosper together, forming recognizable and unified cultures that have their own specific methods of surviving and thriving. The first Leagues were formed to defend the ancestor cores that were distributed among the mining fleets, and they were primarily military in purpose. Soon these flourishing alliances evolved into something closer to nations, each of their own heraldry, outlook, and culture. Some have been destroyed over the thousands of years, while others have been fragmented and scattered. But many have risen to the challenge of life in the galactic core, and have only become larger, stronger, and more unified over the millennia since their founding. Although each league will look to further its own interests and ensure its own survival above all else, there is no consistent approach taken across all the different alliances. Some, like the Gulo Industrial Complex, are known for their mining and resource gathering, while others, like the Jotun Eridani, are renowned for their superlative skill at forging and manufacturing. Still, others are known for their warlike natures and their skill at arms, and none more so than the mighty Kronos hegemony. And finally then we got 3 of the other major leagues. So starting off with Uta Destin's the Greater Furian League. The Greater Furian League is one of the largest and oldest of the leagues of Votann. They have amassed a huge store of wealth and command one of the largest and most powerful armies of Kinhost warriors. Their deeds and battles are legendary, for they can boast of famous heroes such as Uta the Destined and Karl Kovim Red. So the Greater Furian League symbol is, well, the first 3 letters of the Furian and a cog symbol. And they have the greeny grey sort of fatigues with the white armour. The Trans-Hyperion Alliance. The Trans-Hyperion Alliance are noted for their adventurous streak and their love of exploring. They use advanced spacecraft to search out untapped resources, new trade routes, and other species to ally with. They hold deep respect for their ancestors, and of all the leagues, they are probably the closest to having a religious attitude. Pretty cool league with a nice orange and black colour scheme. So these are the colour of choice for the kill team of the Hernkyn Warriors, which included one of the first jump pack units in kill team. And finally then, the Ymir Conglomerate. The Ymir Conglomerate are noted craftspeople and manufacturing experts. Their Brokir produce some of the finest spacecraft, weapons and equipment among all the leagues. In order to join a conglomerate, a kindred must pay an offering of raw materials and prove that their Brokir are of sufficient standard to stand amongst the Ymir peers. And I think probably one of my favourite colour schemes, very close to the Barak Zon Caradron Overlord fleet that I quite like, which has a very similar colour scheme, where you have a dark blue cloth and then a red armour. So there we go, that is it for the lore sections of these 2 issues. Whew, I need a bit of a break after that. And then I'll get on and we'll look at all our gaming articles. So we've got some pages for the campaign to go through, and then we get to try out our Hernkyn Pioneers against some Eldari. So all that's left for me to do is say thank you all very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time for some more Combat Patrol Carnage. Goodbye.